And we're back, and we're moving into our final conversation for today. One of the things that the Prime Minister also said yesterday was that with the delay in the reopening of the airport, it means that Belizeans who do want to return home will have to follow the same repatriation process that is happening at this time. And here to give us more insight, or I should say here via Zoom, to give us more insight is Michelle Williams, who we've talked to many times about yoga, but today we're talking about your journey back home. Good morning, Michelle.
Good morning. I hope I can get a little yoga in as well, but yes, good morning.
Of course you will, but we're so interested to hear about your story first. First of all, you're in quarantine, right?
I'm in quarantine at the Radisson. Yeah, they're taking good care of me here, and I think 8 others, so yeah.
And this is day what for you?
You know, I really don't know. I think it must be day 6 because we arrived on Friday, and today's Thursday, so 6 or 7, day 7.
Yeah.
Okay. The days are like intertwining with each other.
Yeah, I figured that must be like, since you're pretty much confined to a room, so that after a while it must get pretty repetitive.
But
yeah, well, I've got a lot that I'm doing, so it's actually a really opportune time for me to kind of, get work done. So I'm kind of grateful for the isolation.
Yeah, well, that's good to hear. And so, well, let's start back with the beginning of the journey. So for all of our viewers, where were you? I suppose, yeah, where were you previous? Where did your journey originate?
Well, I originally went to do a training in the Himalayas in India at the Sattva Yoga retreat. And it was initially supposed to be a 3-week training. I just felt like at that time I needed a little time to reset before the season started again. And I wanted to give myself a treat. Mm-hmm. And the training was going to be kind of like a relearning of sorts. So it wasn't going to be anything so intense. And so in March I arrived in the Himalayas, just in the beautiful mountains near Rishikesh, India. So that's where I was. So what was initially supposed to be 3 weeks turned into a beautiful learning experience of 5 months.
Wow. Yeah. So I remember this story. I think you finished up your retreat and you kind of reemerged and realized that things were out of sorts with the world.
Yeah, well, we knew, there was a lot of people that was there, and we had to lock down the retreat, so nobody could leave or go. What we could do is just pretty much go by the river and sit and meditate by the river for a couple hours a day. But besides that, normally they go on hikes and different excursions, and we were kind of confined to. It was a beautiful confinement, but we were confined to the area of Sattva.
So when you look at the situation, yours is extremely unique, of course, being stuck at a yoga retreat center. But for other Belizeans as well, those who really want to come home, talk to me about what it feels like about feeling unable or waiting for going through the application process. What's the sense? What does it feel like when you know you want to just get home and it's going to be a process?
Well, it really tests you in how you approach the unknown, and I think we're still in that environment where everything is really unknown. Like, we don't know how. There's very little planning that we can do because we don't know what's going to happen. I can tell you that when the first lockdown took place, and I figured I would just, by the time the lockdown would finish, it would be time for me to go home, and I would just get on my normal flight and go home. And when I got the first email from the airline saying that they canceled the flight, I knew that it was going to be I was stepping into an experience that I'd never experienced before. And my greatest concern was, of course, for my mother. She's incredibly healthy. She eats healthy. She does yoga. She does Tai Chi. But, she basically would be by herself, and she took the initiative to close the businesses just on the brink of the first lockdown, because I think she had that foresight that things were going to go weird, and that I wasn't going to come home. And I had to really sit with that notion of the unknown that I'd never really experienced before, and kind of just surrender to God and just hope that my mom would be okay and people that I know and love around the world would be okay, because it wasn't just me, and it wasn't just my mom, and it wasn't just Belize. It was, it was the whole world experiencing this thing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sorry, I was going to ask. So when you get to the point where you can apply for repatriation, how long was the process? What was that like for you to be able to complete from there?
I think I have to commend the foreign affairs, or the people that were dealing with the repatriation. I guess it was like a little bit over maybe a month and a half that I waited for a repatriation flight. But the actual and that was there was some things involved, because I had a ticket that was going on United from India to Belize, and I think they were just waiting for that ticket to become my repatriation flight, so I didn't have to purchase another ticket. So I think that if I had pushed them, I probably would have been able to come home earlier. As far as the application process was concerned, I mean, it was relatively simple. They asked me questions, they asked me where I'd been, and they asked me for my passport, and they came back and they just let me know that I'm on the list, and there's just to hold tight, and they'll get me on the flight. And that I had some concerns, because I about my actual traveling process, and the people that I emailed, they were very communicative. That if I would email them, I would get a response back quite quickly. And so as far as that's concerned, I did feel relatively, confident that the work was being done on the other side to get me home and to get others home as well.
And you had to secure your hotel first before you could get repatriated.
We had to secure. There were 3 choices, I think: Biltmore, Princess, and the Radisson. And we had to secure our hotel in order to get the final letter, I think, that gave us the opportunity to get on the flight. And so that that was part of the process. Yes.
And of course, one of the things that I'm most interested to find out is, because of course there's not a direct flight from India to Belize, so the travel process in the time of the COVID-19 pandemic, I'm not sure what route you took, whether it was through Europe or directly to the States.
If I had come through Europe, I probably wouldn't have been allowed in the States, because they have a ban on anybody that's gone through Europe, that you have to go another route. But like I had said before, I was quite lucky, because what happened was that the return ticket that I originally got, which was Delhi, New York, Houston, Belize, was the ticket. I mean, it was the ticket that kept getting canceled and rescheduled. And in the end, July 30th, United sent me an email saying that the flight is taking place. So it was actually my original return flight. But I know that there were other flights available. Air India was doing some repatriation flights, bringing their citizens back home, and then of course going out to different parts of Europe and also to United States. So I know that there were different options.
And sort of the change, I guess, in the travel experience in terms of moving through airports and the experience of boarding a plane, like what was that like?
Yeah, well, it's funny. My mom kept telling me take a picture of the gear that they had me on, but I couldn't do it. But initially, I don't know if other airports, but initially when I arrived at the Delhi airport, I was quite tired because it was a 8-hour drive from where I was in the mountains to Delhi. And I just wanted to get in and sit for a while.
Yeah.
But they had to wait outside the airport in a allotted area until I guess it was to manage the amount of people actually in the airport, in the terminal space. So we had to wait there. I had to wait probably for an hour and a half or something, and then they allowed people to go in. And then we check. Of course, we're having to wear masks at all times. And then once we check in, they give you a bag with kind of like a space suit and plastic covering. And we were asked to wear that throughout the flight. So we had that on the flight.
So it was like one of those whole gowns that you see people wearing.
It was a whole gown. And to be honest, I'm still trying to figure out what was the point of it, but I guess people know why they did it. I mean, I can understand the plastic face guard because it gives you that extra, not just the mask, but it gives you that extra, like mask of protection. But the suit, I mean, it was nice because the airplane was cold and it gave me a layer of warmth. But I'm still trying to understand what that does.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that was one thing. All the airline, the flight attendants from Delhi to Newark wore these very big face guards. But the actual flight and the service was relatively the same. It was a full flight. We didn't have like a space between us. It was every 3 seats in a row, and every seat was taken. So that was relatively normal. Only the
so
gear
that was the standards, I'd imagine, that are implemented in India. What was the difference when you flew within the United States? Because you had to go from New York to Houston.
Within United States, they did have markings on the floor when we were going through like the baggage section, and so that we would maintain a certain distance, but there wasn't any implementation of that gear, that gown, and everything else was really kind of the same. The airports were there was a lot of businesses that weren't open in the airports, as was in India. I mean, there was only a few. Normally it's a hustle and bustle kind of thing, and it was a completely different atmosphere when it came to that. Yeah.
And your arrival in Belize, tell us that experience.
Well, it's funny because I actually felt quite kind of like regal, because when we got to Belize, we had to wait. We did it. Well, first of all, we did the test. That wasn't anything. There was nothing regal about that. I mean, it was kind of a challenging swab, especially the nose swab. But we waited in the waiting area. There was a distancing involved. There were people always there to answer any questions that we might have. And then we got on a bus, and the bus we had a highway patrol that kind of allowed us to bob and weave through the traffic. So we kind of like speeded through the traffic, and they dropped us off to our respective hotels. And then we checked into the hotel, and they gave us, kind of what we were going to be expecting, the meal times that we would have our meals, and, that basically we were to stay in the room and the day. And then there was another testing there's another testing that's going to occur sometime this coming week, that we have to take. So, I mean, it was, it was, I just kind of thought, wow, this is kind of nice. They give us like when dignitaries come to Belize, you get this special patrol thing where you don't have to wait in the traffic.
While actually it was just so you don't escape.
Oh, is that what it was? See, yes. My mind is thinking.
Like they do what the prisoners do.
Actually, there were some people that was like, wow, they think, okay, so I get it.
Perspective, that's all it is.
The actual reason wasn't what I was thinking.
It means you're in a very optimistic frame of mind, and it means that we would also we would also think that you're really happy to be home. Michelle, just
Yeah.
in terms of weighing in, you know, there are people, and we have to be honest here, there are people, and we've heard from some over the course of the weeks, who are saying they're stranded and they really want to come home, but it's just too cost prohibitive for them to pay for quarantine. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, that's what, you know, that was the only way that I was going to be able to come home, and there was an advantage on my part that I didn't have to pay for another ticket to come home. It was my original ticket. Mm-hmm. But I do think, you know, I don't think that the quarantine is overpriced in the hotels. I think, but of course, for people that are just trying to get home, of course, it's going to be an incredible challenge and a deciding factor if they come home now or not. It would be nice if the government could have, you know, appeal to maybe pay part of the quarantine lodging for people that. You know, and if it was done on a need basis, if they could really prove that they needed help and they just wanted to be home, that of course would be helpful. I know some of my friends when I was in Sattva, I mean, but these are big, very developed countries like New Zealand. I mean, they paid one price and everything was included for their repat. So I don't know of any country that isn't charging for repat. Maybe there is, but it certainly is. It certainly is costly for those that you know. I mean, it was costly. It was certainly costly for me, especially at a time when we're not earning any income. I mean, that was a deciding factor. And in fact, that there was a point where I was thinking, you know, should I wait until and come home until everything's cleared and then avoid that extra hotel fee. I mean, I did think about those things, but I think that just the need to be back with my mom helped me to make that choice. But yes, it's hard.
Yeah,
that's hard.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So,
and, you know, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was gonna get to yoga, your favorite topic. Because we're running out of time, and I appreciate you sharing your experience so that we could know just what people go through when they're coming home, what the airports are like. So many of us haven't seen an airport in a long time. But you are actually taking all the knowledge that you've learned at your recent retreat and all the extra time that you got to put in there too, and you're offering some new classes. Tell us about that.
Well, the actual type of yoga that I'm doing is a type of yoga. It's an integrative practice. So it involves not only 1 hour of coming into a yoga studio and doing physical postures and maybe some breath work, but it's a holistic lifestyle approach where we really, you know, we create a community, a sangha. We indulge in the reading of the readings of the sacred texts, and acquire more wisdom, so that we can really like retune, refine our intellect, refine the way we think. Of course, meditation is part of it, and also like these sacred rituals into incorporated. People from the Catholic faith, they do rosary. I'm now part of a puja community where we really have that time to connect to the divine and to kind of set the tone of the day. Really getting into self-study, acknowledging the areas in which we need to work on, and using the techniques that we're taught to really work on that, to evolve and to really acquire that infinite potential that's in all of us to be who we really are meant to be, and we're not burdened by negative self-thoughts and this kind of like the chains of judgment that we have on ourselves and on others. And the difference also with the kind of yoga that I'm going to be teaching is it's called KRIYA Yoga, and it's a very it's not done so much in the West. And it's quite ancient and traditional, whereby usually the teachings are taught from teacher to student, and it's not really written down.
Yeah.
But it works very, very good in releasing trauma, like deep-seated trauma. And also for this time, we work a lot with expanding the lung capacity. So we do a lot of breath retention.
Yeah.
I mean, during my time at Sattva, I was up to almost 5 minutes of holding my breath, and that's really, really expanding the lung capacity as well. And then also with the Kriyas, which also incorporates breath work and mudras and other yogic techniques, we can really strengthen the immune system as well. So there are techniques that are really, really relevant for this day, and in the situation that we're in right now. It actually, the way in which I acquired the knowledge, to me, it just seemed almost like a synchronistic type of thing, where I learned it just in time to share it, because I think if we concentrate so much on the fair aspect of what's going on, we can really get burdened.
Yeah.
But if we use the techniques that I'm about to share, we can really, we can prepare ourselves. We use it as a preventative method. We strengthen our immune system. We expand our lung capacity. And I just read an article from a Washington University that said that one of the things that they're researching right now that has, and actually my teacher was saying it from the very beginning, is that we just need to strengthen our immune system.
Yeah.
What's occurring now is it's an opportunity for us to really, in actual fact, get healthy, and connect to earth, and start relying on like these quick methods of placebos when it comes to meditation. So changing our mindset, refining our intellect, connecting with people that will share uplifting, high vibrational knowledge, and keeping that within us, so that we're also what KRIYA does is that it offers us this opportunity to shift not only our physical and our mental, but our energetic body, so that we really can kind of invoke a really positive mindset.
Michelle,
So it's almost serendipitous that you're able to learn these skills, and that you'll now be able to share them within this time.
There are techniques that in the West they don't really, what I'll be offering, they don't really offer it. I mean, it's quite tradition. It's quite ancient, and it's quite a traditional form of yoga that is incredibly powerful.
How are you going to offer it, Mish?
Yeah.
Excuse me?
How are you going to offer it, since
I'm going to start doing, I'm going to start doing Zoom classes.
Okay.
And if we're allowed to, I'm actually, when I was in India, I was doing initiations for the meditation technique that is part of the Sattva technique, which is also Kriya and mantra based. And so there are people in Belize that are already practicing that form of meditation. So I'm learning to utilize the internet and utilize the technology of the internet.
Everybody's world has been able to be transformed online, just like this interview here. And so if people are interested, they simply contact Om Shanti?
They can WhatsApp me at 610-0882.
Okay. Well, Michelle, we thank you for sharing your story. We thank you for telling us about your new ventures and being able to continue to promote the practice of yoga as a way of healing, and also of helping us to get through this time. Thank you so much. And, halfway there, one more week to go before your freedom again.
Before I'm free to enter into another type of prison.
All right. Stay safe, Michelle.
Thank you.
Okay, bye. Thanks a lot, guys.
All right.
Have a wonderful morning. Take care.
You too.